This is Jim. Jim's got a plan. Replace his worn-out kitchen island with another kitchen island. Nephew crafted, personalized, built to last longer than him. This is Sharon. She has no idea what Jim's been cooking up behind the scenes, but if you knew Sharon's crooked smile, you'd know she deserves something flawlessly imperfect. And this is me. My mission, take Jim's idea and turn it into reality. No IKEA, no shortcuts, just a pile of boards, a wood shop, and a whole lot of faith it'll work out. Or will it? 5 months, a story with a twist, and more than a few, how am I gonna fix this moments? What started as just another YouTube project quickly became something else. A story set in the West and about the people we build for.
So beautiful, don't want to use it.
So buckle up because dovetails and delusions of perfection wait for no one. Let's build it. Of course, every project starts with a bunch of semi-milled wood from the hardwood store, but it's our job to turn semi-milled wood into fully milled wood. And can I just add that this little job site saw from DeWalt is a real champ cutting through this 2-inch thick hard maple. Like any project, order of operations is critical because if you miss a step, it could ruin days of your hard work. So before I cut these to size and assemble the frame, I'm gonna take the base pieces for the bottom frame, and cut rabbets in them so the bottom shelf can plug up underneath. I'm gonna take these posts and cut notches in them so that the middle shelf can slide right in. In my design, I'm hoping this looks nice. We'll see how it goes. The purpose of the 2-degree tilt is because it gives an extra inch on each side, making the top a total of 2 inches wider than the bottom. That's nice. I was kind of going for a little design pizzazz, and I think I'm gonna accomplish it with this. With the dado cuts here, even though they're going in opposite directions, when I lay them down on the miter saw to cut that in, I don't have to adjust the miter saw at all. Don't ask me how it works, it's just math. This is my frame, the front and the back. I have everything in place and I need to make the bottom shelf and the mid shelf. There is a groove here where it's gonna slide into and it's gonna sit a little proud, and that's kind of the look I'm going for. But I'm also gonna do this 1/2-inch round over on everything. So the question is do I assemble it all and then slide the shelves in, or do I assemble it all together with the shelves in place? Well, because I'm putting the round over and I want all these transitions to be just right, I have to put the shelves in after I assemble the frame, which might pose some challenges to getting this to look perfect. I'm milling the wood for the panel that will be the mid shelf. It's critical to plane it to the right thickness since I'm going to be sliding it in the dado slots that I cut. A tight fit is a good fit because I'm still going to sand the shelf. These boards are all ready to go. Check out this joint. I think we got a good fit. Might be a little snug to slide in, but either way we'll make some adjustments if needed. Now I gotta put panels together. I milled enough hard maple for the mid-floating shelf and the bottom shelf, so 2 panels total. Once the panel boards get any longer than 2 feet, I tend to use dowels to help with alignment. A domino would speed the process if you have one, but I haven't risen to that level of YouTube fame yet, so no domino for me. Making them the perfect size isn't a good idea, but oversized is. That way, I can cut them to size later. I would consider having the top of the frame 2 inches wider than the bottom to be one of those subtle design features that most people will only subconsciously notice.
In fact, one of my neighbors came by to check out what I was doing, and to my surprise, he actually pointed out that it looked bigger at the top than at the bottom. Personally, I think it adds character to the piece. Also, notice these pivoting attachments on my Bessie bar clamps? They allow me to clamp up to a 15-degree angle off of 90. No one needs this attachment until you need it, if you know what I mean. I needed two frames that exactly matched each other, so I kept one close by to make sure they were identical. I performed a glueless assembly of the two frames with the upper and lower braces so I could mark where to drill the joining dowels. The inside corners were tricky, but nothing a piece of scrap couldn't help with. This was also the perfect time to mark all the edges that would be rounded over, identifying the size of the roundover. Once taken apart, I wouldn't know up from down unless it was marked. For some reason, my dowel centers for this particular size of drill bit is just too tight of a fit, so I had to improvise in getting my holes perfectly placed.
Now you're ready to drill, and you can do this a couple different ways. I just made myself a drill guide. If you have a drill guide, then use it. Just make sure the thickness is appropriate and you have a depth stop so you don't drill all the way through. Now the problem is it's hard to see that little hole through this hole, and that's why I use my headlamp. So just kind of eyeball it, get it to the center, clamp this piece down. I made it extra long so that I could, and clamp your piece down, and then just go ahead and drill. Before I do the round over on all the edges, I need to make sure all these lines are perfect, that they come together just fine. And there's a couple of places, such as right here and right here, where there's a teeny bit lip. So I'm gonna clean this up, maybe some sanding, maybe even a chisel, make it look nice and smooth so when that round over comes over, there's no divot. To create the look that I want, I'm gonna do a 1/2 inch round over all along the inside perimeter and on the outside post. Then a 1/4 inch round over on the bottom and a 1/16 round over at the very top. I would love to do a 1/2 inch at the bottom, but I need surface area where these casters are gonna go, and a 1/2 inch is just gonna take too much off. There's something uniquely impressive about a 1/16 inch round over. The roundover was impressive, but the grease from the bearing, being pretty much the first time I've used this out of the package from the Astra-coated bits and bits bit, not as impressive, but I think it'll come off. Taking a 1/2 inch roundover all in one pass can be risky, so I'm going to incrementally raise this so I don't risk tear out. Smooth like butter. I didn't go all the way. But when I connect it, I'll go all the way. I have a few burn marks, but it's okay. I have tools. Check this out. Getting these burn marks can be a little intimidating, but with this circular rasp, actually come off pretty nice. Kind of like this thing, check it out. You gotta go light though, don't put a lot of pressure and don't keep it in one spot. You gotta kind of keep moving it. And then these transitions, you can soften them up as well. That is a whole lot better. Burn mark is gone and transition is a lot better. And it'll look even better when we get the other side. This is the moment that I call the glue up. Let the stress begin. I have it clamped right here, only holding this post up, because as one person trying to glue this all up, it's really difficult. So here we go. On second thought, this is a Type Bond 3 moment. Definitely Type Bond 3. Need a little extra work time. Dang it. Well, that wasn't so bad. Well, actually, it was really stressful. Which brings us to our newest segment, right angle, which is where I see if it's square. It's square. You want to see a cool clamp trick? It always works for everyone else. And this is why I waited until now to make this trim cut, because the transition will be spot on.
This frame is starting to actually look like something, especially with the right size roundovers. It's astonishing how a roundover brings a project to life. Now I'm moving on to the bottom panel that I need to cut to size and secure to the underside of this cart. Being that I am in the Central Valley of California and will be transporting it to the super dry climate of the Salt River Valley near Phoenix, Arizona, I want to allow for some expansion and contraction. It will contract in the dry climate, but if it ever leaves that valley, it can dramatically shift with expansion. So I will cut it slightly smaller than the bottom opening.
Ho! All I need was to make one adjustment and boom, perfect. Of course, there were 20 to 30 other adjustments I made off camera, but the first time works every time after 30 back and forth to the sander and everything else.
Okay, check this out. One of my favorite things to do in this whole build, right there. That's right. So satisfying. When putting in a panel like this, I'm boring out a hole slightly wider than the screw head, but not all the way through. Then I follow with drilling a hole slightly wider than the screw threads. This allows for wood movement of the panel that I'm securing to this base. It's so easy to mar your project without some painter's tape and a playing card when flush cutting your dowel plugs. It's best to use a Babe Ruth rookie card, but you can get by with an ace of spades.
See that panel right over there? It's supposed to go right here for the middle shelf. And frankly, this is the part I've been stressed about the most because I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get it to fit perfectly. I need to cut it to size. I'll put the 2.2 degree angles on both sides. It's gonna sit proud. I'm gonna round the corners. Conceptually, I think it's a great idea. Aesthetically, in the end, I don't know. This is a tough one to make it look good, fit perfectly. Have you been there before? Drop a comment below. Hi. I was afraid this was going to happen when I was putting the panel together. Days later, I totally forgot all about this. This panel is ruined. The whole thing. Oh my gosh. This is awful. This sets me back some time. You have a miter saw, you just need the right miter saw station. I put this video out, it blew up. The plans are selling like crazy. Pick up yours today, click on the QR code, and it comes with free plans for the upper cabinets as well. You won't regret it. For the meantime, this is gonna live over here. I might use it in the future, but who the heck knows? But guess what? I don't think I should be so hard on myself because so far this project has been going really nice. That frame over there is about as square and as perfect can be. I double checked the measurements, and frankly, I don't think I've ever done more perfect of a job. And also, The hardwood shopping can wait till later because I have a floating drawer that I'm gonna work on, and frankly, pretty pumped about that. So let's look for positivity in the future. Everything is awesome. And hopefully no more mistakes. Let's do this.
Furniture pieces that are mostly one color or species of wood can be leveled up with a touch of contrasting color. That's why these mahogany boards are being laminated together to make the top and bottom panels of the floating cabinet. And I know what you're thinking, that's a lot of wood to just be an accent color. But the truth is, just the edges will actually ever be really seen. I guess you'll just have to keep watching so you get what I'm talking about.
These are ready to be cut to size, but before I do that, I have to pick the grain. One piece is gonna be the entire back panel of the floating drawer. The other piece is gonna be the side panel. So the question is, what do I do? Do I have the back panel with this nice, beautiful, straight grain, or the back panel be the more cathedral grain? I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. But after much thought, we're going with the cathedral.
In case you were wondering how this project came to be, it wasn't something I just decided to build in one day. There's a story behind it, and I want to tell you that story. It started with a phone call out of the blue from my Uncle Jim. Now Jim, he's one of those guys who doesn't waste words. When he calls, it's for a reason. And he said, "Logan, do you think you could build me a new kitchen island cart?" His old one had seen better days. The kind of piece that had been through a few too many dinners, a few too many holidays, maybe a spill or two along the way. But this wasn't just a request, he had a plan. He wanted to surprise his wife Sharon with it by Christmas. And if you knew Sharon, you knew that she loved her kitchen and she loved nice things. I thought, yeah, that sounds like a fun build. But there was one problem. My project list was packed. Christmas was a few months away, and I knew there was no way I could pull it off in time.
I got this board all of a sudden that I'm gonna turn into a shelf that I messed up earlier. I'm gonna do it really fast. Definitely not gonna screw this up this time. So let's cut it to size first before we sand it and get rid of those lines where we see the dowels at. If you look closely, come look, you'll see it. 18.5 inches exactly. I want this to sit a little proud, so if I cut it at 19 inches, it'll stick out 1/4 of an inch. Or should I do it 3/8? Could look cool at 3/8. 5/16, let's compromise. And if you think I forgot that 2-degree angle, 2.2, don't worry, I got you. Or me, I got me. I really got me.
I believe I was telling you a story earlier, so let's get back to it. No wood was cut yet and no plans were drawn, just Uncle Jim's request bouncing around in my head. Jim had no idea how much this little project would end up meaning. When I called him back, I said, "Uncle Jim, I can do it, but honestly, it might take a year before I can start." And he just laughed and said, "That's fine, I'll wait." I knew he really wanted it soon, but he also didn't want to put any pressure on me. He was just being kind because that's just how he is. So I put it on the list. One of those projects that live in the back of your mind, waiting for their turn. Months went by. Then, around April of the next year, I gave him a call. I said, "Hey Jim, I'm about ready to start on that kitchen island." And he said, half laughing, half surprised, "Honestly, Logan, I thought you'd forgotten all about it." And that stuck with me because he wasn't being unkind, just honest. People say they'll do things all the time, but most, they never follow through. And I thought, not me. Not this time.
I need to sand the top and bottom of this floating shelf, and sanding gets a bad rap because everyone thinks it's so boring. The reason why is because they're all doing it wrong, because they're doing it by themselves. So I'm gonna ask you.
So Uncle Jim and I started talking about what he wanted. His list was short, just 3 things. He said, I want it to be the same size as the kitchen cart I already have. The kitchen's small, so anything bigger would just be in the way. The second request was, make sure you can't see what's stored on the shelves when looking into the kitchen. His was a 3-wall U-shaped kitchen, so there was only one way to enter the kitchen. The third thing he said was, and I want 4 pegs on the end for dish rags. That was it. Simple. But of course, I started doing what woodworkers do, asking about details. What kind of wood would you like? What kind of hardware? What style are you thinking? And he just laughed and said, Logan, I just want something made by you. I kept pressing. Okay, but there are some cool options for the top. Maybe an ingrained butcher block. And he stopped me again, a little slower this time. Logan, I just want something made by you. And right then it clicked. This wasn't about a kitchen cart. It was about something else entirely.
Well, that came out good enough. Now it's time that I get this bottom panel cut to size. I might use my jigsaw for this one. Of course, I'm going to flush trim it so it fits perfectly, but I need to get it down to close enough until I get the router out and trim route it. I gotta find these lines and...
So, since this was about something else entirely, what was it about? Well, he didn't want a piece of furniture. He wanted a piece of family. Something that would carry fingerprints and stories long after the sawdust settled. Jim is 80 years old, still sharp, still strong, but I could tell this meant something to him. Maybe it was a gift for Sharon. Maybe it was his way of saying thank you for the life they built. Simple, quiet, but deeply theirs. Maybe it was just his way of leaving something behind. Either way, I knew what I had to do. I told him, say no more. I'll take it from here. From that point on, it wasn't just another build. I decided I'd treat every cut, every joint, every surface with care. If I was going to make something that would live in his home, something that would outlast both of us, it had to be right.
Before I attach the bottom permanently, I'm going to apply finish to this shadow line rabbet, because if I don't do it now, it'll be impossible to get in that groove later.
I was full of excitement, full of plans, and then, not long after, I got another phone call. It was Jim again, only this time, his voice was a little different. He told me that Sharon had passed away. It was sudden. She had some health challenges, but still, you'd never expect it. And no one did at this point in her healthcare journey. And one day you're planning a surprise, and the next, the surprise doesn't matter anymore. Sharon was one of those people who made everyone feel like family. Warm smile, even if it was a little crooked, and an easy laugh. She had this light about her. You couldn't be around her and not feel better. And just like that, she was gone. The kitchen island, this project, it suddenly didn't seem so important anymore. It hurt to think she'd never get to see it. And part of me felt like I had missed my chance, that I had failed to deliver something that could have brought her joy. But I also knew Jim still wanted it, not as a surprise anymore, but as something for her. So in June of 2025, just 1 month after Sharon passed, I started the build. Every board, every joint, every wipe of finish carried more meaning than any project I had ever done. It wasn't just a piece of furniture anymore, it was a love letter. Written mostly in hard maple, signed in sawdust and memory. And as I built it, I realized something. Woodworking isn't just about making things. It's about keeping people close, even when they're gone. So this isn't just a kitchen island. This is Sharon's cart, Jim's memory, and my honor to build.
This is making dovetail drawers according to me, and it's my first time doing so, so I'm going to tell you the challenges that I'm facing and what I'm going to do to work around it. First, inside this drawer, which is not secure, I have to cut a dado channel all around the inside. The problem is two things. Number one, it's going to run right into this tail, and I'm going to have to work around that. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. I have a plan, but before I do that, I have to make this fit in that dado channel. This is a 1/4 inch bit, and this is slightly thicker than a 1/4 inch, so it's not going to fit. Here's my plan. I'm going to take that bit and take a rabbet around all the edges so that just the edges will fit in that 1/4 inch. Step 2 is taking this apart. With each piece, I'm going to run it through this bit to create a dado channel 9/16 from the bottom. But I can't go all the way, otherwise I'm going to mess up my tails. So let me show you how I'm going to avoid that. I use this square to draw these lines that represent the thickness of this bit. So as I slide this way, we'll start actually by coming down upon it and then going across. But as I pull it all the way, when this line right here lines up with this line right here, I know that I can stop my pass. Well, in true Dude Sawdust form, I made a mistake. Wrong side. This is right, this is wrong. So I found a piece of scrap, I'm going to plane it down, I'm going to stick it in, shave it down, plane it down, sand it down, and fix this up to look nice. Well, that turned out okay. It'll look a lot better once I get it all sanded. And luckily, this is going to be in the back of the drawer. Maybe no one will ever notice, and they never will. Back to where we left off, step 3. All the ends have these little rounded portions that we need to square off. That's going to take a little chisel work. Step 4, if you see this tail notch right here, just sticking out, getting in the way when we put that bottom shelf in. So the plan is to nibble off just a little bit of that corner with the bandsaw. Just touch it, and that way it can slide right on in. To get an idea where to cut, I'm going to slide this shelf in till it stops, and I'm going to mark it like that. And then I'm going to put it in this groove right here, and then move it that way, and we're going to mark that. Now you can see just about where we want to take off. I'm not even going to go all the way out of the line. I'm going to go before that line. So less is more at this point. Let's see if we can get this thing to fit. I had to make a couple adjustments off camera, but very minor. Now, I put it all together and it looks great. And by the way, of course, I'm working on two, but I was only showing you one. The first one I did as practice, so I would know what to tell you when I did the second one. Because I'm putting these in undermount drawers, I have a couple minor adjustments to make before I move on to the fun stuff for these drawers, which involves the laser engraver. These drawers are the perfect blank canvas to personalize this project for my uncle. He's from Arizona and he loves all things Arizona, cactuses, the Grand Canyon, all that stuff. And that's kind of why I went with the Paduke, because of the color reminds me of the landscape of Arizona. I got this brand new laser from WeCreate called the Lumos, and it has this slider that you can get with it so you can get larger pieces. You can also do tumblers and all that stuff. It is a versatile laser. We're also going to use this for some metal engraving. Stay tuned for that. But first, let's get this part done for a couple of pieces of the drawers, and then I'll show you what I can do with a little bit of brass. It's perfect for putting any design you can imagine. I go to Canva for my graphic designs, but WeCreate also has free software where you can create designs. It has two lasers in one, so I can laser wood and metal. I thought it was quite clever of me to engrave the actual fountain logo from the city he lives in, Fountain Hills, Arizona. Some people brand their projects, but I can't think of anything cooler than recessing your own commemorative coin engraved with a personal touch. If you want one, scan the QR code on the screen. Seasonal wood movement is a real concern, especially for what the drawer bottoms look as the drawer sides expand and contract. So I'm gonna put the finish on now, then assemble the drawers. That way you'll never see an unfinished seam. What you're about to see might be hard for some people to watch. So if you have kids in the room, this might be the time where you have them step out. I know so much has been done to make these drawers as beautiful as possible, but what I'm about to do is what we call a necessary evil. And when you're dealing with undermount drawer slides, it's something you gotta do. You see, it's just a necessary evil for these channels right here for it to sit. It has to seat inside, so I needed to cut that out. And now with these pegs right here, I just need to drill a hole so that they'll slide all the way in, and then these drawers are structurally finished, except for the drawer faces. The finish came together gradually on this build. A little here, a little there, drawers, shadow lines, the frame, all getting attention along the way. Every piece has 2 coats of Rubio Monocoat Pure, except the food prep surfaces. It never fails. The moment the finish hits the raw wood, and the grain just wakes up. I tend to keep things simple. No stains, no tints, just letting the wood shine on its own. With the right piece, hard wax oils with color blends can look great, but for me, there's nothing better than a finish that simply lets the wood be itself. The next step is this medallion, and I need to put it right here. The problem is I put some hard wax oil in this area, so the epoxy is probably not gonna adhere as well, although it should still do a pretty good job. I'm gonna have to rough this up just a little bit, sand it maybe take some chunks out of it so that the epoxy will find a nice purchase. I've been waiting way too long to put this top on. And with these dowel centers, I'll be able to just place it right on top. It'll make an impression, and then I'll be able to remove it and drill holes so everything lines up. It's gonna look sweet. In lieu of any catastrophic failure, I am not going to do anything to this top until I flush trim it. Because I do need to finish it, I do need to adhere it with glue, but if I mess up the flush trim, then I have to redo this whole panel or at least some major fixing. Fortunately, this is mahogany. It's kind of a softer hardwood, so I don't think there'll be a problem, but there definitely is potential.
Most of this interior will never see the light of day again, but I'm still giving it a proper finish. Call it pride, or just an inability to leave well enough alone. Supposedly, finishing both sides keeps the wood from absorbing moisture unevenly, kind of like putting sunscreen on one arm. Technically, it helps prevent warping and cupping. Whether or not that's true, who knows? But at least the wood can say, I gave it every chance to live its best life.
Drawer box done. Drawer boxes done. Drawer faces not done yet.
I know what I have to do.
I need about 33 inches of one continuous piece so that when I cut it up, it will have continuous grain match. Pay no attention to this piece right here, which is sticking out too far. That was supposed to be recessed about a ½ inch. So we're gonna work with what we got. Just a slight mistake. I'm gonna spray this down, wipe this down with mineral spirits so I can get a good look at the piece that I want. It's gonna make that curly maple pop, and hopefully the curly maple on the regular hard maple will look fantastic. We're going for a classy look here. I'm kind of in love with this piece right here, but my height is only 3 5/16 high. We have straight grain here and straight grain up here with cathedral grain in the middle.
Not here or here so much, but right here.
Maybe if I just capture part of both. I'm gonna cut off this piece. It's gonna be more than 38 inches, and then we know what we have to work with. Okay, check this out. This is 33 inches, roughly. This represents the width of each of the drawer faces, and I'm thinking that from here to here, it's best if I take a little bit off the top and a little bit off the bottom to capture that straight grain down here and that kind of more cathedral look at the top. And I think the best of both worlds is what I want to go with. Let's cut this up. I haven't finished or attached these drawer faces yet. And the reason why is because, well, I want to move on to the handles and I got some finish curing over there, so I don't want to mess with that. In the meantime, I'm going to make these handles, and frankly, I can't decide which color of wood to go with. Padauk, curly maple, or walnut. Those are my three options that I'm thinking about. So here's what I did. I went ahead and made all three colors, milled them up, and I'm gonna use these blanks to make the door handles. Now, I have taken some inspiration from Bourbon Moth and a desk that he built. So I'm making the handles pretty much the same way he made his, but with a slight variation. You can see what I'm gonna waste and what I'm gonna keep. My modification that I was going to make had this angle coming at this direction, but honestly, the Bourbon Moth style, I just liked it way better, so I'm gonna go with it. The only difference is I'm gonna have mine in opposite directions, whereas his were like this. I did it with all 6 of these blanks. Now I just gotta cut them out.
If I felt like I could come up with a better design, I would have, but ever since I saw Jason Hibbs make these drawer pulls, I just had to make them too. I sketched out multiple iterations, but none of them were as good. Like Jason, I used the same scary large pattern cove bit, and with a pucker in my took eye, I slowly ate away at the pulls until the bearing touched the wood. That's why I left the pieces extra long, so I would have room to hold on without my fingers getting too close to the router bit. After that, it was as simple as cutting off different angles with the table saw and the miter saw until it was easy enough to sand it down so it was curvy in all the right places. Of course, it does help if you lock your table fence down like I did not do right here.
I just realized I cut to the point at the end of the board and not to the line, so I still gotta cut a little bit more off. There, that's more like it. Not so big and prominent. Did you just see that cut? I think we have a problem. That's what happens when you go too fast. Well, I guess walnut is no longer an option, and this is why we do 3.
I just kept changing the angle of the saw and cutting a little bit here and a little bit there until it started to look how I wanted it. If you are going to make drawer pulls that are similar to these, feel free to get creative with it.
The jury of one has spoken, and I have decided I'm going with Padauk. These are pretty cool, so I'm gonna save these for another project. Maybe I might use them. Walnut, obviously, cut a little too short. That's out. Now, I need to get these attached to the drawer faces, and I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do that and get these drawer faces onto these drawers so they look just right. I'm just gonna use a cutoff as a spacer. You can do this however you really want. You just gotta get to place it where you like it. I'm gonna make sure the distance from this point to the edge of the board and this point to the edge of the board is equal. Now that I have the placement, I'm just going to mark it along the edges so I don't forget. With my drawer pull and my screw clamp, I'm gonna use my drill press to drill for the holes. The drill bit is 5/32, and the screw I'm gonna use is a 2-inch long number 8-32 machine screw. So these pair perfectly for the size of the hole. I have these mini dowel pins that fit perfectly in these holes. Now with this piece, I'm gonna go back to where I drew my line, and I'm gonna line it right on up perfectly. And now I'm gonna press down, and that's gonna leave a nice indent to tell me where I need to drill. I put my drawer faces in place, wedged in with spacers, creating the exact reveal that I want. I don't have any double-sided tape because these are wedged so tight. And if you do it that way, you won't need it. Now I can drill in my indents exactly where my screws are gonna go. I need 4 screws to look like this one. Now you can do this with an angle grinder, and I have one, but I'm gonna use my oscillating spindle sander with 40 grit paper, and it'll grind it right down pretty darn quick. Just be careful because it does get hot. So use gloves, dip it in water to cool it off, and I use a pair of vice grips, so really tight, by the way. Now I can put my 2-inch screws to secure this in place, and then from the other side, I'll screw in, pre-drill first, my 1-inch number 8 cabinet screws to keep this secure to the drawer. I need these to stay in there. So, how's that gonna happen? You guessed it, 2-part JB Weld. These headless machine screws are ready to go in, nice and secure. They've fully cured, so let's slide them on in. For educational purposes, I wanted you to see how it goes, but I'm gonna remove all 4 of these pieces and finish them, and then reapply them, so we can move on with the rest of this build. It's time to transition to the butcher block top. Let me show you what I have going on. This is the butcher block top diagram. Now, these seams are here intentionally, so it gives it kind of a design. I want my uncle to know that I actually put thought into how things were laid out. These are all my measurements, and there is going to be a cutting board that sits below this that slides out. So the thickness of these is going to matter. So this piece thickness is going to be different than the rest. I just got to mill all this up so that I can glue it up to look like this. You know how stressful glue-ups can be, and this is no exception. This is only a portion of the butcher block top, so I'm going to focus on this first. The problem is these staggered joints that you see right here and these little pieces that would just fall if they're all just resting on the parallel clamps. So here's my plan. Fingers crossed it works. I'm going to use this first of all as a spacer, so all my seams are even. That's 3.5 inches. I'm going to put all of them on top of this MDF piece. From underneath, the parallel clamps will clamp it together from the bottom, and then I'll use other clamps for the top and hopefully be able to hit enough of the points of contact that I'll be able to get a good glue up. Also going to use Type Bond 3 because it's waterproof and there'll be food prep on top of this. It was a challenging glue up because of all the little pieces, but I did it in 2 separate pieces because I don't have a wide enough planer. That is only 13 inches, so this, too wide. The seam here is gonna have to be jointed after I run it through that planer because there is a little bit of a gap, but I think with the jointer and the planer, I'll be able to glue these 2 pieces together and it'll look really good. And then I can just clean up the edges just fine. Now look at that. It lines up so much better. I'm gonna have a cutting board that comes out from underneath the butcher block top, and I wanna design it after the Arizona flag. keeping with the theme of things. Now, without a CNC, this poses some challenge. So I'm gonna have to use some not so old-fashioned woodworking, but definitely incorporate some hand tools possibly. I can use my laser, my table saw, who knows, the router. We're gonna mix it up with some tools to create what I hope will be a focal point that is not so obvious in this beautiful kitchen island cart.
I used tigerwood and soft curly maple for the alternating sun rays and cut them by sticking a 31-degree scrap piece to my table saw sled to cut the correct angle. Each ray is supposed to be just shy of 14 degrees. Since my crosscut sled only cut up to 45 degrees, I had to add another 31 degrees with the scrap. 45 plus 14 plus 31 equals 90, and that is how I math. The glue up was a little tricky, and I'm sure there is some no-brainer easy way to do it, but I decided to glue it up in sections. I even used the other sunray pieces to act as opposite angles so they would fit in the parallel clamps. The pivoting jaw faces that pair with my Bessie clamps really came in handy. To prevent them from gluing to my workbench, I covered the surface with painter's tape. I even resorted to using my bandy clamp, and in the last glue up, I noticed that it was starting to bow upwards, so I weighed them down with kettlebells.
Check this out. I'm just gonna cut it from point to point on the track saw.
Someone stopped by my wood shop after I completed the cutting board flag and asked how I cut every single piece so perfectly, every angled sunray into a perfect 90-degree rectangle. The secret is to cut everything oversized and then trim it to size. That's how you make it perfect, by starting with imperfection. This same concept is repeated over and over again in woodworking. Rarely do you ever cut anything to perfection in the beginning. I tried my best to get the Arizona flag cut perfectly to scale, but just like the desert sun, it didn't care about my intentions. What you're seeing here is the laser cutting the Arizona star to perfect size, exactly 1/3 the height of the flag. Unfortunately, the math checked out, but reality did not. Everything you see here had to be done all over again. This 20-watt laser did its best, carving that star clean into the cutting board. But the cut line left a gap just wide enough to mock me every time I looked at it. And I'll show you what I mean in a bit. I told myself, hey, maybe it won't bother me. Spoiler alert, it did. It's funny how good enough sounds great until you try to fall asleep that night. The fix wasn't hard, but it took time. And if there's one thing I've learned lately, it's that time is like clamps. You think you've got plenty until you need just a few more. And when I do have it, it disappears faster than a tumbleweed in a dust storm. So while my disappointment was drying under a questionable clamping setup, I figured I'd use the time to install the caster wheels. Now, indulge me for a second while I brag a little. These aren't your average hardware store wheels. These beauties are 150-year-old cast iron casters with double wooden swivels. They were restored by a guy down in Southern California who runs a small shop called Iron Anarchy. I've got no affiliation, just respect. Look him up on Google and you'll see why. Tell him I sent you. It's just good karma. These trim pieces came from a scrap of black walnut that's been loitering in my shop for years. One of those boards you keep moving around, knowing someday it'll earn its keep. And this was the moment. The grain's dark, moody, a little dramatic, like the lumberyard version of Johnny Cash. Wrapping this cutting board in that trim takes it from good to, yeah, I meant to do that. It's a small detail, but it's the kind that makes you look at it twice and nod in quiet approval.
Take a look at this mess. I am not happy with how this star came out. The line around the star that the laser cut is just too thick. I mean, honestly, if you look at it, it's just not up to my standard. I feel like I can do a better job if I just do it by hand and don't use a laser. I will cut out a new star with the laser, but on the cutting board, I'm gonna do it by hand.
Here's where I make a little creative detour from my goal of making the flag perfectly to scale. Since the first star turned into more of a cautionary tale than a star, the second one had to be bigger. Big enough to politely cover my earlier oops. I ended up making this star about a ½ inch larger all around. To the naked eye, you'd never notice the difference. Unless, of course, Uncle Jim suddenly decides to host a federal inspection in his kitchen with a clipboard and a ruler, in which case we might have some explaining to do. But honestly, it felt good. There's something about grabbing hand tools and really getting in there, chiseling and trimming those edges. Makes you forget all about the mess ups. It's slow, a little nerve-wracking, and incredibly satisfying. The wood pushes back, but the tools do most of the talking. And after a bit of effort, voila, it starts looking like it's supposed to. Those little victories are the kind that make a woodworker smile, even if your first attempt made you question your life choices.
This is so much better. I'll put a side-by-side up on the screen so you can see the first version versus this version. Now, it's not perfect. For example, you can see a little bit on that corner, but the rest of it looks pretty darn good. The problem is now, this is a cutting board that's gonna pull out from underneath the cart, and I need something that extends beyond on this side for it to be stable. So it's actually, this is only part of it. There's a whole nother section right here. So what am I gonna use? This right here. Remember that piece that I messed up, the bottom shelf? Well, I'm gonna use this piece, cut it up, and fit it to connect on this side. But before I attach that piece to the cutting board, I need to attach the sides to the butcher block top. These pieces, if you look from the side, gives the appearance that the butcher block top is much thicker than it is. But lo and behold, the cutting board is right underneath. I can't attach it as well because I want to know the length of this piece first. I haven't cut this to size, the butcher block top, so I'm going to attach this, cut it to size, and then I'll know exactly how long this piece is supposed to be that connects to the cutting board. That is pretty darn good. Now that I have the butcher block top cut to size, I can now measure how big the extension piece will be that goes from here to here. Good thing I didn't give up on this maple board I messed up on earlier. As long as I didn't cut into the dowels again, then this panel can be used. Off camera, I made sure to make my cutting board the same exact thickness, so when attaching them together with the dowels, they would line up perfectly. Turns out, they did. On the underside of the cutting board, I routed this groove so it could easily be pulled out with your fingertips. In fact, I did it on both sides. One side, it can be pulled out to use the cutting board, and the other side, it can be pulled out to remove the cutting board completely, in case it ever needs to be cleaned. But when the Arizona flag part of the cutting board is pulled out, there needs to be a positive stop embedded into the opposite side. I found this piece of walnut scrap that was perfect. It had been in my small scrap bin for several years. Honestly, it would just need a dowel to stick up out of the board, but this scrap piece made it seem a bit more elegant. I thought it was a nice addition that leveled up the craftsmanship. But for this whole idea to actually work, I needed to route a channel right down the center of the underside of the butcher block top, and not just somewhere close, but dead on. The margin for error here was basically zero. That groove had to land exactly in the middle so the Arizona flag could slide in smooth and straight.
and it needed to stop precisely at the point where the full design would be revealed, and not a hair past it. Go too short, and it wouldn't seat properly. Go too long, and the effect would be ruined. It's one of those cuts that keeps you holding your breath until the router powers off.
I'm gonna call that one a win. I found the best looking figured hard maple. Look at this. This is amazing. Now you're wondering, what do I have these panels here for? Well, I made 4 of them, and one of the criteria that my uncle gave me was that as he walks into his kitchen, he doesn't want to see what's on the shelves of the kitchen island cart. So these are going to be floating panels. Why floating? Well, I think it's just cooler. So to put them on, I'm going to use these standoffs. They're going to come off of the frame on the inside and kind of give it a dimensional look as you're seeing it. And hopefully it won't take away from the aesthetic of the kitchen island cart, but add to it. That's the goal. Just got to put them on.
At this point in the build, I was starting to get a little antsy. Tell me if you've been here before. You're on the final stretch of a project, and suddenly you realize all the hard stuff is behind you. The designing, the milling, the sawing, the glue-ups, the routing, the symphony of sawdust, it's all done. And what's left? The deceptively simple stuff. Drilling the right holes in the right places, aligning everything perfectly so your hard work doesn't get overshadowed by something just a hair off center. It's the home stretch, the point where one wrong move can turn a masterpiece into overpriced firewood. You're double checking hardware placement, hoping the drill doesn't tear out a perfect surface, and reminding yourself to breathe before driving every screw. It's that strange mix of excitement and paranoia, like the project's whispering, "You've come this far, don't start celebrating just yet." I could see the finish line, and there was no way I was fumbling the ball at the goal line. Even though you're seeing me put it all together, you know how this goes. Everything comes right back apart for the finishing process. With a piece like this, finishing in phases isn't optional, it's survival. Because the truth is, the last 10% of a project can take 50% of your patience, and I was running low on both. And speaking of patience, my neighbors were kind enough to answer the call for backup. I needed about 4 extra hands to mount the floating drawer box, and they didn't hesitate. Showed up faster than a clamp rolling off a bench. Getting that drawer box centered in every possible direction was no small task. Spiritually, emotionally, and geometrically, we were all trying to stay centered that day. Luckily, one of my greatest strengths as a woodworker is a complete lack of pride when it comes to asking for help. I've learned it's better to swallow your ego than to drop a drawer box. Sometimes the best tool in the shop is a good neighbor, and a reminder that gravity never takes a day off. I know this has been a long video, and for those of you who've been following along, whether you just found the channel or you've been here for the last 5 years, I just wanted to say thank you. Hang in there with me a little longer, we're almost to the finish line. Originally, this video was supposed to come out in 2025, but here we are, well into 2026. And as I sit here in my little editing bay, which, let's be honest, is just a closet, I've been reflecting on what this build has meant to me, and more importantly, what it means to my Uncle Jim and his wonderful wife Sharon, who passed away just 1 month before I started building it. Jim's 80 now, soon to be 81. I hope he gets to enjoy this island cart for another 20 years, cooking, laughing, maybe leaning on it with a cup of warm something in the morning, and when that time comes for him to join Sharon again, I like to think that this cart will live on. Passed down to one of his kids, standing strong, carrying stories in its grain. Every project I make teaches me something about patience, design, craftsmanship, but also about life. There's this quiet satisfaction that comes from taking one last look before a piece leaves the shop, knowing you gave it your best and that it's heading somewhere it belongs. If Sharon were still here, I know she would have loved this cart. not because it was fancy or expensive, but because of what it represented. Jim had planned it as a surprise, something he knew Sharon was down for, a good surprise. That was Jim in a nutshell. Steady, thoughtful, always doing something kind behind the scenes. He's not one for big gestures or long speeches, but when he loves someone, he shows it in the details. And it's the details that I honed in on when building it. When I visited Arizona for Thanksgiving to deliver this cart, I could see how much he misses her. There was a moment that he's probably glad I didn't capture on camera where he expressed his sorrow that she wasn't here to see her surprise. The way he still talks about her, the way her name still softens his voice, it's proof that real love doesn't fade, it just finds quieter ways to stay. And even though Sharon isn't here to see this piece in person, I like to think she's still part of its story. Maybe she'll drift through that kitchen on a Sunday morning, the Salt River Valley sunlight coming through the kitchen windows, just checking in, making sure Jim isn't storing the mail on her new island or leaving last night's leftovers on the top. She'll probably smile at how proud he is of it, and maybe, in some way, at how proud I am too. Because at the end of the day, this isn't just a kitchen island. It's a tribute. A small piece of wood and time that carries their love, and maybe even a little reminder that the best builds tell a story long after the sawdust settles. This one just happens to tell theirs.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Logan. That is more than I expected, for sure. That is beautiful. That is a work of art. No doubt about it. Oh my gosh. Oh! It is absolutely beyond expectation. So beautiful, I don't want to use it. Just look at it.